guide, and it connects to a standard port that every car sold since 1996 has, and it talks to your smartphone over Bluetooth. And your phone is connected to the internet, and that now allows us to connect to the computer of your car and do lots of cool stuff.
And this port on the car is called the OD something.
OBD2 port. It's the onboard diagnostics port.
Yeah. Onboard diagnostics port. ODP. And what is it called?
The onboard diagnostics port. This is the OBD's second version of the standard, so it's called OBD2 port.
OBD2 port. And so, when did cars require this port?
1996 model year and later.
Okay, so everybody's car has this basically, unless you're driving a real old junker, in which case you probably don't need this. Now, this is a very affordable device. How much does this cost today?
You can go walk into an Apple store and buy it for $100.
$100. Yep. Now, it doesn't have 3G or GPS, or does it?
It does not. So it talks to your smartphone, it connects to your smartphone with Bluetooth. And
so that's
it uses a lot of the capabilities of your smartphone, and that's how you can make it really work.
So if I loan my car to somebody, I don't know where it is necessarily because their phone is not connected to it.
Yeah.
So it does have a limitation there.
And that's it, yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at what the software looks like once you put this in here. And what is the target market for this?
So right now, the kinds of people who are buying the product are the average consumer, right? And so that was part of our goal when we were designing the product, because the port has been around for 18 years, right? And so, there are lots of other devices like this one, but there has never been a product which actually works for the average driver, and that's what automatic does.
Okay, so let's pull up the iPhone on the stage, please, and we'll show that. Can we pull up the iPhone on the stage to port number 5, I think? We don't need the over-the-shoulder, I don't think, because we're going to directly plug in.
Are we on?
Not yet. I don't think so, unless it's on a different screen. Hey guys, can we put the screen on here? On the stage for automatic. Branded. Anyone? Bueller? Okay, so $99, you got yourself in the App Store while they're getting that figured out. How long has it been in the Apple Store, by the way?
We launched last October.
Last October, past October?
Yeah, about 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. Yeah.
Okay, and how does one get into the Apple Store? I know that's a long process. How does that work?
It was interesting because I started talking to them the moment we had a good story to tell, and it was
talking to Apple.
Yeah, talking to the buyers of the Apple Store.
So you connect with the buyers of the Apple Store.
Yeah,
they're pretty discerning.
They are very discerning, and they have standards that they expect everybody to meet if they're going to sell your product in the Apple Store. And
what are those standards?
In the sense that Apple sets certain standards for their own products, and at least my interpretation of the way they do things is if you bring the same level of care and concern for the product and the user experience, that's the single most important thing.
So try to make it as close to an Apple experience as possible if you want to be in the Apple Store. It makes kind of sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so hey, can we try to get this up one more time? And can somebody tell me what's going on, or if I should give up? Should I give up, Brandis, or should I move to the Elmo? Okay, here we go. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so the way automatic works is, and what does it do? It gives you a lot of feedback on how I actually use my car. This is actually my data, and one of the interesting things about our cars is that we spend $8,000 to $10,000 a year on our car, and we have pretty much no insight into how we use it, how we spend money on our cars. And so one of the things automatic does is it gives you feedback about how you actually use your car. This at the top end of the screen, you see that I drove about 350 miles last week, and I spent about $60 odd. I spent 10 hours in my car. And we also give you a score, which is depends on how you actually drive, because the small changes in your style of driving can help you save up to a third of the amount of money you spend on gas. If you spend $3,000 a year, that's a lot of money, and you can also get details about how you're actually using your car. This trip, I drove for about 22 miles and I spent $5, and if I tap on it, you will get more information about where was I driving. And as you are driving, the device also gives you gentle feedback on little things that you could be doing which has an impact on fuel efficiency, right? Hard braking, acceleration, and things like that. And so that is how we give people insight into their own driving behavior. And
Yeah, so is that the number one reason people will buy it, is to be better at getting gas mileage, or do they just want to obsess about their car? I'm trying to think of like, what is the real killer app here? Have you found the killer app for it yet, or?
The way we look at it is that one, we are kind of laying out the foundation for the connected car and services platform, right? And as a startup, you don't, go in and build everything. So right now, we think we have a good story to tell, and we have launched that product. And there is obviously a lot more that we are building on top of this. And as of now, what's really working out well for us, and the feedback that we're getting from our users is this is insight that they never had. And in addition to that, we also do things like we tell you where your car is parked all the time, right? And so this is where the car is parked right now. Walking directions back to that car, and this is simple. Your smartphone should know where your car is, right? But it doesn't today. And even interesting things like if my check engine light comes on in my car, like what does that even mean? We can tell you here's why it's on, and what is the solution to that? Why did it come on? If it's something as stupid as your gas cap being loose, one tap on your smartphone and you can just clear it, right? And so there are a number of things like that. And the most important one, of course, that resonates with a lot of people is crash alert, because this is without a monthly fee or any complicated setup.
Which is the on-start feature.
Exactly. Right? And so there is a crash alert, and we can detect that crash. There's a call center in the back end, and we will call into the car and stay with the user and contact their emergency contacts. So all of that happens for $100. And so that is really compelling to a lot of people.
Most people would prefer, I think, if it had like maybe a 3G connection in it. So if my phone battery dies, I can connect to it. I know my Tesla has 3G built into the computer, into the dashboard, and you can sort of find your car even when your phone's not in the car. Is that the next version, do you think?
So, I don't want to pre-announce anything right now, but the way we have always approached it is that how do we make it as affordable as possible, right? And this is something that historically, when you want to add connectivity to cars and you have like a $30, $40 subscription fee, it's generally not worked out. Even major companies like Ford take the strategy where you bring your own connectivity, right? And so that we feel is the right approach. And so that's what we're working towards.
Amazon did that WhisperNet, I think, kind of deal on the books and stuff like that. Can't you do like a $5 a year, like very low utilization data, or is that too hard to do now?
It's not too hard to do, and that is a great idea, yes.
Okay, great, so that's coming soon.
I did not say that.
I know, I did. Here's some statistics. Maybe you had some statistics.
Yeah, so can we move on to the next slide?
Let's go to the slides for a second.
Yeah, so one other thing we're doing with all of the data that we see from our users is we get to see an enormous amount of data that is coming in from cars. How do people actually drive? And this is analysis that our data scientists are doing. What you're seeing on screen right here is information about how are cars actually performing on the roads. Like this is kind of hundreds of thousands of miles of actual driving data, and this is the kind of data that we're already exposing on our blog. You can go read about it. And you will see that most cars are most fuel efficient at about 50-55 miles an hour, and they dramatically start dropping after that. And this is the kind of really good insight that we have about how people drive, and we're going to be able to personalize it and give every user of automatic that information for their car. And we're also doing some fun stuff, like if you ask the question, how do you kind of bust some myths around driving, or maybe you can confirm some myths around driving and driving behavior and the stereotypes around that. So if you ask the question, how do luxury car drivers drive their cars? Are they aggressive drivers? Are they bad drivers? And if you consider different types of luxury cars, how do they drive? This is Audi A4 drivers. What this graphic actually shows you is the line in the middle is the heat map. The taller the graphic around the line in the middle, the harder they're accelerating and braking, right? So that is what this shows for Audi A4 drivers. But if you look at it for BMW drivers, you will see that they actually do that a lot more, and they're really slamming on the gas and brakes. And so this is data for, again, hundreds of thousands of miles of driving across different.
And this is an actual. This is the truth. This is not.
No, this is data from actual automatic users, right? And of course, we are very paranoid about user privacy and all that. This is just aggregate data across different users, but it allows us to see patterns that simply weren't available before. And this is the kind of interesting work that we're doing right now, and we'll will slowly be exposed to all of our users.
So you can start to figure out who is a good or a bad driver from this kind of data?
We absolutely can. And so the way we think about it is, at the end of the day, that is data and information for the user. We just hold up a mirror and they get to decide what to do with that information.
Do you think there will become a time, and we're already seeing this with some insurance policies about the amount of miles you're going, do you think there's a time where my insurance would be tied to something like this? I mean, that is the big fear and opportunity. Yeah. Obviously, BMW drivers have no interest in sharing this and having their insurance go up. But the Audi driver might be very interested in lowering their insurance and saying, look, I don't want to slam on my brakes, I don't speed. You can have all my data, just give me a lower rate.
Yeah, and that is already happening in the insurance industry. It's called usage-based insurance, and people might be familiar with ads on TV that various insurance companies are starting to do that. But the problem with those models is exactly what you described, is you don't want to take a device from your insurance company and have them own all of your data. And the benefit of this whole system is that at the end of the day, you control it. Right? If you want to share it, you can share it. If you don't want to, it's up to you.
It's usage-based now, though, which is just how many miles I go. My insurance is based on how many miles I drive.
And that's starting.
Yeah.
And it's not popular yet. It's not the mass market, but that is the direction in which that industry is going.
When will you think style of driving, starts impacting insurance? 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
It has already started, right? And
really?
So, yeah.
There are people tracking speed?
So when you can sign up with some insurance companies for specific products, which will collect data about your style of driving, and they will charge you accordingly.
Are they popular yet? Those ones, the style of driving.
Part of the problem is that there are
Yeah.
privacy concerns, and nobody wants their insurance company to own that data. And the challenge is, how do you get the user to control that and be in the center of all of that? And so that's how we think about it. It shouldn't be anybody else but you.
Has anybody had data from one of your devices or a similar device basically subpoenaed or requested from law enforcement after an accident or during a lawsuit?
No, that hasn't really happened to us so far.
Hasn't happened to you? Does that happen in the marketplace when people say, hey, we know you have a black box in there, we want that data because we want to sue you, or you could be at fault or you're not at fault?
Yeah, and that's definitely a risk. And because that is a pretty serious issue, a law is making its way through Congress right now, which basically says any data related to your car, the consumer owns it. Right? It starts from there, and they get to decide what happens to that data. And so it's being regulated, and I think over the next few years that will absolutely happen.
Do you think, though, our data, we can own the data, but a judge can say, hey, listen, we think you're at fault. We're going to get that data from you and force you to give it. I mean, what do you think is going to happen there? Do you think it should happen? Do you think it will be better for society if all of our data is actually subpoenaable, discoverable, or do you think because it could make everybody a safer driver?
Probably, and that is the general trend towards which once you start connecting all of these devices, there are 200 million non-commercial passenger cars on the road in the US, right? And that is a whole lot of vehicles. These are the most expensive computers we own. They've never been connected. And so a lot of these questions are going to become very important as this huge part of the economy suddenly comes online and gets connected.
Yeah.
And there aren't easy answers. We have struggled with those questions in other aspects of technology as they get connected up. And we're going to struggle with those same questions in this aspect too. And we'll see how that goes.
Right.
But anyway, so going forward, the other thing that we're trying to do with Automatic is the fundamental goal is to connect that expensive computer we own and make the ownership experience better.
Is there another slide?
Not really, no.
No, okay.
So there is no slide. So I'm just going to go to the next slide. So what we're doing next and taking that one step further, and today we are announcing that we are integrating, how do you make your car a node in the larger Internet of Things of our life, right? How do you make it talk to all of the other services that we are really familiar with? And that's what we are enabling today. We are announcing that we are going to be a channel on if this, then that. If, you guys might all be familiar with that. And what if does is it's a service which makes it very easy for any service to talk to any other service without you having to write any code or program it.
So you have an example of how this might work?
And so some of the things that you can do with it are, you can text your significant other when you leave work automatically. The moment you switch on your ignition, boom, the text message goes out. The moment you go home and park your car, you can turn on the lights because it's connected in the back end. Your car is now talking to the Philips Hue light bulb or your smart home or hub or something like that. When your check engine light comes on in the car, you can set it up so that your mechanic gets all of the details of what is wrong with your car and your phone number, and all of that just goes to him immediately, and he takes care of it. So there's lots more that can be done, and we have a number of recipes that have already been set up and created on EFT, and all of you should definitely go and play with it and create more of your own depending on all the services that are on EFT. And so, what we also thought we should do is just to make it attractive to all of you. We've created a code called launch. You can just go and order it and play with it and set it up and let us know what you think, and you're going to get 25% off if you just, and this is for the launch audience.
So that's very generous. Thank you, everybody. Check it out. Now, so these if-then else statements, they are pretty basic right now. This is the 1.0 that you're launching today. And people might be able to trigger alerts when they are coming or going and all that kind of stuff. That's great. Are you going to be able to communicate between cars at some point?
Absolutely. And so, the next step for us in that direction is what we announced 2 or 3 weeks ago was every automatic device is now an iBeacon, right? So
an iBeacon.
It's an iBeacon. So
right.
That's technology that Apple announced. And so connectivity is not just about connecting your car to the cloud. It's also how do you make it talk to the other devices in the real world, right? And so what can that enable? Things like you just drive into a parking lot and the gate opens, you park and you walk away, and the gate knows that your car is you and it has an identity. And once you go near, it's able to charge you. And same with fuel payments. There are all sorts of applications where your car having an identity and making it proximity based will allow you to improve the experience in all kinds of different
So you don't need the security guard there, it just opens when I'm there, and if not, you get a ticket to pay. And so is there another slide, or?
Finally we were talking about how cars could possibly talk to each other, right? And so that's an interesting development that's happening over the last decade actually, but right now this is something that is becoming more and more important. The federal government recently came out and said they're going to mandate that all the cars have to talk to each other starting in a few years, and that will make a lot of things that are a problem today, safety for example, and it's kind of the analysis is that once cars start talking to each other, about accidents are going to go down by about 80% or something like that, right? And so this is something that's happening now.
What is that technology called? Because I know that exists in planes.
Yeah.
Planes have beacons that tell them if another plane's in the area, and every plane has to have that.
Yep.
So what is this technology called that's coming? Because obviously it's not based on the support, it's based on them talking to each other.
It is. So it's called V2V, vehicle-to-vehicle communication, and it's based on technology called dedicated short-range communications.
Dedicated short-range communications.
Yeah, it's called DSRC, and so it is a Wi-Fi based standard. Right?
Wi-Fi?
So it's at the same frequencies, and it's similar to that. And so it has a range of about 1,000 feet. And so anybody who is in a range of about 1,000 feet from you, it could either be another car, or it could be roadside nodes which you're also talking to. And so that's what makes the entire system more intelligent, right? You know where other cars are. If it's a blind intersection and 2 cars are coming close to each other, they warn each other and maybe slow down. And so that's what brings about the safety benefits.
And if we have those in our cars, would we have intelligent intersections? Or is that
so the way, at least that's the goal. There are all hurdles to get there, but some of the things that you can enable is, the moment an ambulance comes onto the road, right, it gets the green all the way through because the ambulance is not talking to the nodes along the road and saying, I get priority, and you can enable things like that.
And how far before you think the sort of vehicle-to-vehicle communication standard sort of hits the road?
As with all things automotive, that's the interesting question, right? They have huge, long product cycles, and I think it's unlikely to happen in the next decade. And this is the classic chicken and egg kind of problem where it only becomes interesting once a critical mass of cars on the road actually have that. And that's why federal regulations are happening, because otherwise nobody has an incentive to actually build them into the cars. So that's what's happening now.
They could be added to existing cars, right?
They could be. They
Put
could
on
be
that
fit.
data.
The
Yeah.
question is who's going to pay for it. What is the consumer benefit today if nobody else has it?
And what would the retrofit, you think, for a device like that cost? You think it would be a $1,500 device?
Probably, yeah.
So, I mean, if we get to a tipping point where a third of the cars on the road have it, because they're new, we could just,
But that's the thing. To get to a third of the cars, new cars, that's going to take 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah, it's going to take 10 to 15 years.
Wow. So it's hard to actually make this happen. Well, this is an incredible view of the future of driving, and I really appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah. Really interesting. Okay, so next up,